LaKesha said, "Hey, Shivawn and Mom." She heard you in the background. Goodbye, Mama. Oh wait, I have a question. How do I? I always forget how to share my PowerPoint. I should remember by now. Or did you leave out? Oh, okay. Thought so. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, with all those yeses. Oh wait, I got 800 tabs open. Hold on. Let's X out that for a second. Oh, let me mute myself. Okay, so I'm going to get started in like 1 minute. If you're in here and you're waiting for everyone else to join, by all means, let me know where you are located, your city, your state. Talk back to me because I love it. And it makes me feel like we're actually in the same location. And I'll share where I'm at. Where in here too. I'm currently in Virginia. And I feel like Hopkins should have or maybe they do, where you can pin it. Like if you have a question, put your questions in the chat. Do they have that? No? Okay. So thank you everyone for joining. We are about to, oh yay, I have somebody from Africa. I'm excited. That's so funny. I was about to be extra, but I literally, that was my prayer this morning. Like I want to go to Africa because there's some stories I want to tell. So welcome. I'm glad that you have joined. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so we're going to get started because I have a lot to cover and I want you all to know. I feel like they should have that option, Keisha. So I want to be able to answer as many questions as I can, and also teach as much as I can because I love teaching. I just have to be honest about that. So jumping right in, did you know that 66% of people say they most prefer to learn about a new product or service by watching a short video? YouTube replaced Facebook as the number one platform that affects consumers' behaviors. I was really surprised about this. And these are all recent statistics. And YouTube leads the way with 197.5 million monthly users on an average. Netflix comes in second with 72.9 million. And there's been a 80% increase in the spent watching time on videos on Instagram. And 82% of consumers utilize video in 2021. That's recent. And over 70% of viewers say YouTube makes them aware of new brands. And the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because to give you perspective. I think that we are limited to one space to communicate with people creatively and to prophetically produce, which I'm going to get into what that means. As you see, YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, whether it is Twitter, TikTok, there is a lane that you can absolutely connect with your audience, and it's more than enough people that are looking to hear from you. So before we get into what prophetically producing is, I want to tell you who I am and what qualifies me to have this conversation with you. I am the founder of Sam Studios and Good News Co Network. And I am an award-winning filmmaker, an executive producer, a podcast producer, a published author of 2 books. I tell everyone, if you find the first book, don't judge me. This was before Christ. You can also find my work. It has been seen on PBS, Roku, KP Media TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and this year's virtual Essence Festival. My story did not start there. I was a counselor, boutique co-owner, blogger on an online magazine, and a publisher, something like a Jane of all trades. But I realized I was searching for something that I hadn't seen, the ability to use my voice as a creative who was led by her faith outside of church plays. No shade, because we do need them, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm here to equip you to tell your stories in media and entertainment. That looks like creatively communicating. And I also hold a counseling degree from Norfolk State University, the Norfolk State, okay, and a MA in screenwriting from Wilkes University. So let's jump right into what prophetically producing in media and entertainment is. Because I know you hear that and you're like, that's loaded. It doesn't make sense to me. Shivawn, make it make sense. So it simply looks like being led by God to produce and create what is on his heart. We simply are here to fill in the gap and cover the spaces that need to be covered. So I want to give you a couple of examples, and please questions or tell me slow down, because this is something I love and I will keep it moving. So in order to fill in the gaps, it looks like this. So recently, if you have followed me on social media, Facebook or my Instagram, I made a short video what it looks like to fill in the gap. And I mentioned one movie, Fatherhood. So in order to prophetically produce, that means that we have to be in tune with what God is saying. God is saying that he is concerned about how his sons are depicted in media, fathers specifically, and if we want to get even more specifically, Black men. Because the narrative that is painted in media, entertainment, social media is that dads are absent, that dads don't show up for their children, that they are non-existent. And God is saying that he has sons out here in his good earth that are doing what he has called them to do. And that's to be a great parent, to be a great father, whether it is a single parent situation or dual parent home. And the movie that I'm referencing is Fatherhood that Kevin Hart is in. And I know you're like, Shivawn, if you saw it, I didn't hear them say anything about Jesus. I didn't see them go to church. I didn't see them pray or anything like that. And this is the issue that's happening. Because we're not paying attention to what God is asking and pleading to be shown through the church, through his children, through our businesses, through our brands, he will use anyone to do it, because we know in the Bible, it says our gift is without repentance. And that looked like fatherhood. It was a beautiful story. Were all the things like politically correct? Absolutely not. But it depicted what's on his heart. And his heart is crying out for men to be shown. And it also does something, because we are prophetically producing and we're putting out good. It encourages other people to show up. It may even convict without us having to be like, you need to show up, you need to do better, because that is what it does when we are led by God. So another thing, and this is a very personal example, my business, Sam Studios, we were about to go into production during the pandemic. We had to pivot, as everyone did, and we had to cut with our in-person live talk show and do it virtually. And so God was like, okay, sit down, because that's how he talks to me. He was like, sit down. I want you to do this really amazing talk show. I was like, word, God, say less. And so I had my own plan. Like, I knew what I wanted to do. And he was like, no, I want you to do a talk show on cancel culture. And I said, even better, because, you know, if we're being honest, I cancel people. I love Jesus, but I struggle with that. And he was like, no, I want you to do a talk show on anti-cancel culture. So I was like, okay, but why? Because that's how I am. And he said, because my heart is always reconciliation. My heart is always giving people grace. And it doesn't mean that people don't get consequences, but it was our job in that talk show, which was a variety of conversations, was to demonstrate grace and to how to communicate when we don't always agree. Because I think that's something, just putting a pin in it, that most believers struggle with, is the ability to have conversations, and I'm not trying to convert you, or that I don't have to agree with you and we still can be friendly. And then third is healthy shows for kids to watch. Now, put in the chat, give me a 1. If you had a Saturday lineup when you were a child for the cartoons that you watch, give me a good 1. But what is happening is we do not have shows for kids to watch. And the ones, if you're not careful, because I have 2 nephews, they are putting a lot of subliminal messages in our kids' shows. Like, I have to now watch, like, look over my nephew's shoulder, who is 4 and who is 11, or is Cam 12, 11, 12. And like, watch it, because it's a lot of messaging in there that's not appropriate. So I want to say this, just like God has called us to prophetically produce in media and entertainment, there's a counterfeit, because that's the enemy's job. And we are allowing the enemy to do a better job than we are. So the same way that God has called his children, the enemy has called the people that he, has influence over to prophetically produce as well, even though it's a counterfeit, but it still shows up. Because I'm just here to bust some people's bubble. Like, all movies that are produced by Disney aren't good. And I'm not like this, don't watch anything unless, because I watch a wide variety of things in film, TV, but we have to show up. And God is saying, are you ready? Because it's time to produce more than you consume. So I want to talk about this. And I also want you to know that I'm saying all of this in love. So please listen from that space. So what's stopping you from prophetically producing or creatively communicating is what I love to say. You are showing up the same. And this is where I want you to listen with love. If you are on Instagram, or if you have kids that have TikTok or anything in that realm, but let's specifically look at Reels, you will know, and I'm saying this in love, you will see people who show up every single day the same. If they're using a Reel, what do we see? Point, 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 words, point, 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 words. So let me give you a hint. Everything that I learned in filmmaking is if you don't have the person's attention in the first 2 minutes of a film, they're going to turn. So the same thing applies to us showing up on social media, using Reels. If you don't have the person's attention in 2 seconds, they're gone. But what is happening is, imagine that you were given the opportunity to show your Reel, which is a commercial. That's all we're doing. It's a commercial. Everything that you're putting out is a commercial. You think that you have to do this thing where you promote yourself. What you put out is a snapshot. It's a commercial. So think about the last Reel. Think about the last thing you posted. Think about the last thing your ministry put up to promote what their ministry was doing. And you were given the slot on the Super Bowl. And you know the Super Bowl, or if you don't know, the slots are $2 million. But you have 10 million people watching. And you're telling me that you're going to show up exactly like the ministry down the street, that you're going to show up like the same as the brand right beside you. And y'all could be, and we're all promoting the kingdom. Or we're all like, let's say you're promoting a hair business and the person beside you is hair. We're still different. So there's no reason why your Reel should look exactly like everybody else. But the reason why we're doing it is because we see the results that the Reel are doing. But that Reel, whoever did the first one where they were pointing to the screen, that was them. So, and I'm gonna go into that in a few minutes, but the issue is I don't believe we know ourselves and we don't know our audience. So your audience is going to give you cues on what they need. Are we listening to them? And this is an issue I see even when I have done some consulting with churches and creatively communicating businesses, individuals. We want our audience to come to us, but we're supposed to go to them. Like, what do you need? Am I talking to you or am I talking at you? Am I paying attention to what you like? Am I hearing your pain points? Like, how many people, after you put something up on your church or your business, you actually go back and look at the comments and you respond and you take notes like, okay, this person said like they need more of this. And I'm not saying that we can appease everybody else, but just pay attention. Also know the system that we are on. And I want to stay here for a little bit, because what I see is we get overwhelmed because we believe we have to know the system of everything, like the system of Facebook, the system of Instagram, social, like all of them, when really you just need to know one. Know the one, and that's your sweet spot. So I am a good preacher's kid, so I, reasonably know a little bit of the word. I was recently looking at Daniel 1:4. And when I was thinking about the system, God was like, tell the people this. Daniel was put in captive by Babylon, which is a system. And he learned their system. It says that he was wise, he was quick to learn, he was skillful, he learned the system that he was in, right? And he also, though, kept the standard of the kingdom, because the kingdom is the system and Babylon is just a false like image of it. So he kept the principles in his heart of the kingdom of God, but he still knew Babylon. What our issue is, we don't want to learn the system we're on. What happens is Instagram, maybe this week, said they are now transitioning. They're telling you, because they don't have to tell you. They are transitioning to video. That's their focus, their top focus. And they're going to give, I think it said $1 million in the next year, and it might be more than that, to people who are doing video. But what do we do? Like, I get it's a passion point. We as believers are always behind the curve. We'll complain. We'll be like, I don't want to do video. It's too much. Why did they change? Because they can do what they want. That's the system. But what we want to do is, and it's nothing wrong, hear my heart, we want to pray only and be like, God, just make them change it back. No, hear what they're saying, and then go to God and say, help me to show up. Like that, like know the system you're on. So whatever system you are committing to, whether it's YouTube, whether it is Facebook, learn what they're saying, but then go to God. And then next is, we are not dealing with comparison, pride, or rejection. Stop complaining, LaKesha, and just go ahead and do it. But we're not dealing with comparison, pride, or rejection. So and don't get me wrong, because it's a feeling, right? And we could really be rejected, because when I first went to film school and I got my first script back and sat at my table reading, it was full of red ink, right? So I could have internalized that and said, like, I can't do this. No, I took it to God. So we have to deal with it, because if you don't, you're going to be on, I like to say, Al Gore's internet, bleeding on the people that you're supposed to be creatively communicating to. Or you are going to be prideful and not be able to ask for the help or collaborate with people. So we have to deal with those things. Also, we're not clear in the process of our creating. And I'm going to give you the process that I use with my team. So y'all are getting things that I don't even tell people on the internet. And we're not living life. So the issue is, you don't have anything to creatively communicate or connect with the people because you're not living life. So, good example. Let's say that your church or organization is saying, you know what, I know we need to show up more with video content. I know that we need to creatively communicate, right? So what do? We make up stuff, but we don't know, because we don't engage with people who don't look like us, don't believe like us, don't talk like us. So you don't know their pain points. You don't know how to meet a need. And a good example is, let's say that an issue that people in your community is they are having issues with their car. This is loosely. So why don't you have somebody in the church and you create a brief show, 30 minutes, where somebody says, this is what happens when you go to get your car fixed. These are tips. Or this is how to look for a car. Like, it's practical things. And it doesn't have to be this like, okay, meet me at the church. And no, like, get it out to the masses, because when you start to be a resource, people are going to come. Or let's say that the issue is in your community. That means you have to talk to people outside of the four walls or outside of your organization. Is single moms or parents are having issues with being able to cook food in a reasonable time, get homework done, sit at the table and talk. Why don't you have a cooking show that your church hosts on Facebook, and it's meals cooked under 45 minutes? I also think that my best friend has a book. So it's things that you can do to translate and communicate creatively to the people and meet them where they are, instead of saying, no, come here. No, meet them where they are. So that's what it looks like living life. And then you're consuming more than you create. So I want to challenge you. And this is no shade, because I am an iPhone user, but I know on iPhones, it will tell you what your screen time is. Do you know your screen time? Are you on your screen time more than you are creating? So next, let's talk about the process that I do with my team. And please, this is where I want you to ask questions. So we recently just did our project for Essence Festival. And yes, I'm a believer. And yes, I did a project for Essence Festival. But we had a very short window. Like, I was in Florida on a Sunday, got the offer. And this goes back to like knowing your skills. I didn't have to ask for it. We were sought out. But I prayed, because I was like, we got this offer on Sunday, and we have to get it, like, go film, shoot by Friday. We had a very short window. So what we always do is pray. And the reason why you don't or probably aren't aware or missing the mark is because we don't sit with God. We don't seek his face. It says seek him first. And we make that so superficial or like so churchy. It's literally like God gives us, it goes back to his kingdom, Babylon. So God literally tells us seek him first, right? So if we're going to prophetically produce and creatively communicate, you hands down, if I could call up my team, they're going to tell you, I'm going to say, we're going to pray first. It doesn't matter what the time frame is. We're going to pray, because that's how we got the idea for anti-cancel culture. That's how we got the idea we needed to pivot in the pandemic. Like, he will tell you what he wants you to do. Good example. God, and I should have put what is another barrier to us creatively communicating, prophetically producing, is we don't obey. So I'm going to use myself as an example because I believe in telling the truth. So about in February, I had a lady come and she prayed for me, and she told me God said I needed to pay more attention to my platform. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did the easy route. And that goes back to doing reels the same way. It's easy. You want it off your checklist. I created these really cute graphics and these really cute quotes, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I knew that God meant that I need to show up in front of the camera more, which I wasn't trying to do. So I get it, LaKesha, when you said it earlier. I didn't want to, because I was comfortable in the background. But how many people are we missing because of our comfort? So finally, like maybe 2 weeks ago, do not judge me, I said, okay, God, I'm gonna get in front of the camera, or I'm gonna be creative, because that's my gift. Like, if you ask me, I'm never slack for an idea, because I sit with God. Like, I'm never slack for idea. That's why I don't care on sharing, because I'm not married to an idea, because I know God's gonna give me 100 more. So I said, okay, I'm gonna be obedient. Sat, did a reel, did another. I was just playing around, did a couple more. Since I've done that, and it's only been less than 30 days, he was like, go and look at your reach. It has increased by 1,100%. How much are we missing because we don't want to sit with God? Like, we want to get to the steps of like, how do I produce? What camera do I use? And you just, that doesn't matter if you are creating the wrong thing. So I encourage you, and I know it's contrary to what we see on social media and even replicated in the church sometimes, if we're being honest, is be busy, team no sleep, hustle, grind. And like, that's not God's nature. He wants to sit with us. He wants to fellowship with us. He wants to communicate, because then he wants us to go out and replicate what we had in our secret time. So then the second step in our production process, because this is really ideation to creation, because we usually get stuck in the idea space, right? If we're honest, give me a 2. If you get stuck in the ideas, you got a million ideas. We get stuck in the idea spot and we never get to creation. So after we set with God, then what we're going to do is assess. Do you know what your brand, church, nonprofit goals are? If you don't know them, so like my goal for getting on this internet and creatively producing is to encourage more producers, to create more producers on Shivawn's side. On my Sam Studios is to produce good stories. Good News Co. is to put out, like, create good news. So anything that's contrary to that, I don't do it. Anything that's offered to me that's contrary to that, I don't do it. But we are not clear in why we are even showing up and wanting to be in front of the camera or tell stories. Like, we just know it's something to do, but we haven't sat down and really considered, what are your goals? If you don't know, go back and sit with God. Go back. You don't even need to be in front of nobody's camera. You don't need to create anything new. You need to go back and ask him, like, what's the why? And then, do you know the needs of your audience? If you are not clear on that, your messaging is not clear. It is all over the place. That's why I can say, and I'm delivered, thank God, I was a Jane of all trades. Did it help me in being a better storyteller? Yes, but I was trying to find. So that's why I had a different blog every other month. I was relaunching because I wasn't clear in who I am, where I've been, what I am trying to solve, what gap I'm trying to fill, and then who am I talking to? And that's another thing. Like, you can have a message, your church can have a message, your business can have a message, but go back and look and see who's responding. It might be opposite. It might surprise you. So next is ideation. This is where you get clear in your story and your message so that you are clear in your strategy. And we're going to talk about that specifically in a minute, because I have some questions that you should be asking yourself every time you get ready to produce or create. And then this is production. Do you know what you have, your resources? So let's talk about this. Do I have the access to all the cameras and equipment and crew? Because I know you're like, okay, Shivawn, you're produced for Essence. You've been on PBS. You've been here. Like, we're not there. That's not what my business, organization, individual, or church has. Listen, you see this good iPhone? That's what I used to produce my last reels. And right before I got on here, I saw that the Canaan Festival, they always list what cameras were used for their award-winning films. Guess what's up there? An iPhone. No shade to the Androids. But the point I'm saying is use what you have where you are. Even the reel that I posted yesterday, I knew I needed to, for one of the clips, I needed to go to Target. And I knew I didn't have anybody, like not a crew available. I was like, Mom, can you film me walking out of this Target? Thank you, ma'am. And she did it. So it's like going back to the part or the barrier that stops us from producing anyway is pride. We don't want to ask people, but is it also because you haven't fostered an environment of community? Like, ask the people. It's okay. Ask the people, because you will use them to collaborate. And then what platform is best for you? What is best for you might not be best for the person beside you. So let's not get into a comparison. And then the last step in our ideation to creation is execution. What are you putting out? Where are you putting it? Where is it landing? What audience? How often? Because we get into this thing where we think that consistency means every single day. The longevity in life of a reel is 2 weeks. So it's not this pressure. I don't have this pressure. And I also know that, like, sitting with God, he will tell me, like, okay, this is what needs to go out then. This is what, like, and I know that we have heard, and this is where, get to bend the rules a little bit. Do this X amount of times, and this is what's going to happen. No, like, you get to define your consistency, and your audience will, like, bend to it. So any questions before I go to ideation? Because I really want to cover that a little bit more. Do we have any questions? Is everybody feeling good? Do you feel a little bit better about producing? Yes or no? Okay. So don't get stuck in ideation. So these are the questions we literally go through in our production process and our team. And my team absolutely reasonably dreads it, because I'm naturally the why person. Like, why? If you cannot keep going, it's a problem. Like, you should be able to answer this, and then me poke and keep poking in order to get some more answers. So what you need to ask and answer before you put anything out: what are you creating? Like, what are you creating? Is it a talk show for your church? Is it a reel? Is it an IGTV? Is it something on YouTube? What are you creating? Is it a short story? Is it a documentary? What are you creating? Like, we just pick up the phone or the camera and we get discouraged because we don't even know what we're creating. And then what prompted the idea? This is why I believe in kids are the best creatives, hands down. Kids, teens, because they don't reasonably care about failing reasonably. And well, little kids, they're not even aware of it. And then they're like, their idea is the best idea. And then they go down this rabbit hole of, like, creativity. So it's like, what prompted it? So I know for me, a reel that I put out the other day is how to catch a procrastinating creative. And I thought about it because I had a conversation with somebody. So my phone is literally loaded with notes in my note section of things that I see while I'm out. If I see a couple out and they might be arguing, I'll make a note like, okay, I need to explore that more. So you always want to explore where your idea came from, because it gives you more insight. Or if you hear something in the church that is being actively like spoken about, like, we need more of this. Write it down. Like the earth, your neighborhood, your community, the people you talk to, your clients, they are your muse. Like they give you the fuel you need for your creativity. That's why it's important to engage with people outside of yourself. And then why are you creating it, and why do people care? So I say this all the time. Well, when looking at like movies, if we're saying movies specifically, or even let's say the church, what makes what you just put out want somebody to stop? And I used to ask our team, like, why would somebody get in their car, drive to the mall, drive in, and then pay high prices for the ticket, high prices for food, and then go see the movie that we produce? Why would they? And it's not a question to intimidate you, but it's to help you develop your story better. It's to help you to develop, like, while we're putting it out, our marketing. Like, these are the things that you ask yourself in order to produce. And this also prevents you from prematurely jumping out there. And then also, who is the audience for this? So I know that you might have gotten surveys before where people like ask you, where do you shop? What do you eat? All of those things come into play. That is why it is my encouragement, and I was having this conversation earlier, that the church does a better job of like, who is immediately around you, or who is watching what you're streaming, right? Like, what are they saying about outside of Sunday and Wednesday? What, like, when you were going through, it wasn't only to Sunday and Wednesday. So do we need to have a show that runs at 2:00 in the morning? Because that's when people are usually on Instagram scrolling and they're really finding nothing more but trouble. You know, like, those are the things that you need to do in order to dig and find what you're looking for, what you're absolutely missing. And then what is the theme of the message, and what are we trying to convey? So the theme for, like, let's say for anti-cancel culture, the theme was reconciliation. We didn't have to beat it over people's head, but we actively showed it. The theme was extending grace, because it was one thing I made certain with my host was, hey, you know, we're never going to have somebody that's going to come on the show and disrespect you, number one. But number two, you are a representation of what we say we believe. So we want you to extend grace. We want you to allow the person to have the conversation and communicate, and you not get offended, right? So those are the things you need to ask. Like, what is the thing that your creatively communication is trying to convey? When you get on your live, what are you trying to communicate? And then ask yourself, how can we creatively show up? And it doesn't have to be this grand production, because the simplest things gets people's attention. And then, are you considering your audience? What images do they need to see? So a very good cheat code of mine is, and my family has just learned to adjust, and my friends, and my best friend, who I think is still up here, maybe. But I literally record almost, not everything, but I get 6 seconds. So when I go to dinner, okay, LaKesha, I didn't need you to say that. I record 6 seconds, but guess what? I'm never slack for content. I have one right now today. I need more storage, but I have over 1,500 videos in my phone. So if I come up with a story idea, it's probably already in my phone. And that's why I want you to get with, like, thinking about while you're out, like, intentional. And these are things that you can practically, I know that's bad, right? These are things that you can practically start to teach yourself, because as a creative and as a producer, my job is to produce. It's to see things and to make sure that it gets out. So if I'm out, I'm always aware. And I think we've gotten away from that because and I'm not saying to go, you know, in random places that aren't safe, but we're just not aware of, like, the beauty of what God has given us. Like, there are flowers. Take a video of it. You love it, appreciate it, do it. If you're riding your bike, listen, be careful, because I did that and I fell and busted my knee. It's another story for another day. But it just starts to train your mind to pay attention to what you see, where there's a story, because because if we look back at our parents, right? And even if we go back to slavery, they were the ultimate storytellers because they saw the necessity in it. I think even this wonderful tool that I use to help create stories, it could be a crutch because we don't know how to talk to each other. We don't hear. We don't recognize the inflection in people's voices. I do this thing called people watching, and I do it because it helps me also be aware of like body language and seeing when people are having like a really good moment. Like we need to make sure that we're showing that. And I think the thing that I really pray that the church gets better at is not just pointing people back to the church, right? Because I do believe that there is room. We need plays. We need all of those things because there's a space for it all, right? But I truly believe that we're missing a wide audience. Because if we're honest, prophetically producing really equals to evangelism. You won't have to go knock on their door. You won't have to beg them if you would just show up in the spaces where they've been crying out already online. The things that we fuss about, like when you see somebody online who is venting about anything, something at work, that's an idea. Write it down. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about people who are dealing with bosses. Let's do a skit and put it up on Facebook on a Tuesday or on a Monday, because that's when people dread going to work. Like that's how my brain works. So I want y'all to start doing the same thing because you're producers. Because I said whoever watches this, God says you're a producer and he's called you to creatively communicate. Start looking at the things that annoy you and then turn it. And let's see how you creatively communicate. So that goes to images. Like I asked someone the other day, I was doing a call with them and I said, give me some images that represent your business. So I want y'all to do that. I'm going ahead of myself, but I want y'all to do that. Give me 3 images that represent your business, brand, or church. What images are there? Because I can tell you hands down what mine are, like quickly. I'm gonna wait for some people to do that. But the reason why I said that is because if you can't think of an image, right, then it's hard for you to get on anyone's platform and put anything out because you don't even know what image would represent your business. So I'm trying to think of a business. So we know Chick-fil-A. What do they show? They show you the cow, right? Because it's like this whole back and forth thing. What is Burger King? Like everybody has an image. And so you should be able to know what even your church, what images represent your industry, your business, whatever you are representing. And if you struggle with that, that's a good practice because it evolves, it changes. It doesn't have to stay the same. And I think that's our issue. We want to be married to it, but it should be something that we grow in. And then also what words resonate with your audience. So I could be super deep, right? And it's not a bad thing. So I know my space. I know that it's prophetically producing, right? And I don't hide that on my business. I have in my business, if you come with me, but whether you believe in Jesus or not, I'm going to be praying, right? But if I put up here, I prophetically produce, it will turn away people because they don't understand it. So they're like, it doesn't meet me. But when I say content creator, everybody says, oh, okay, that's me. And it doesn't mean that you're trying to be manipulative, but it's just meeting people where they are. You're meeting your audience where they are. What words resonate with them? How? Because I believe I was listening to somebody else's teaching during this time. And if we're using this as 2 tools, evangelism and also talking to the people who are with us, the way we talk to the people who we're evangelizing and the images we use for them, not saying that it got to be crazy images. That's not what I'm saying. But they are not going to understand what are some slang in church. Doc. They're going to be like, so you're a doctor? They don't understand. Like, they don't speak what we speak. So that's why it's important to communicate with your audience, not at them, to engage with other people. So, okay, they understand depression. They understand not having a job. They understand wanting hope because that's what we're supposed to depict. Okay. And then what do you want them to feel? right? So these are the questions I literally ask myself when I'm posting my reels or when I'm posting something or we're telling our story. What do I want them to feel? So for always, I want them to feel hope, even if we're talking about something hard. So like yesterday, I said, y'all are procrastinating short term. You're procrastinating by doing these things and you're not creating. But I said it in a way that they didn't feel attacked, but I still spoke the truth. So every story I tell is going to be laced with hope, but it doesn't mean that we're not having tough conversations. And I want them to feel seen, and I want them to be felt cared about. I want them to be encouraged. So that means when I get ready to go and put something, I say, check, okay, do they feel hope? Do they feel encouraged? Do they feel seen? And if they don't, then I need to go back to the drawing board. And then what do you want them to do? So even in as a body of Christ or as a business, people need help. People need to be told what to do, even adults. So if you watch the short documentary that we did for Essence, the goal was we want you to work with us, and we made that very clear. The goal for even me saying, okay, hey, you're not showing up, you're consuming more than you produce, is for you to say, okay, wait, maybe she can help me. Or even me saying, hey, you're bleeding on your audience. Come on, we got to do better. It means, okay, does she have a tool? Yes, I do. You can read my book. So what do you want your audience to do? Even if it's, I want you not to give up. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to laugh. Those are tangible things that you're actively telling them to do. So that is how you don't get stuck in ideation. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Is this a process that you believe that you can implement for putting out creative communication? Or do you think it's any area where you feel like, I'm not sure, I need help? Any questions? Well, I got you. It's no problem. I got you. We'll get you together. And do you see any areas where you struggle at? No, I feel like I flew through this. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so my question is, stop saying you hate creating videos. Why do you hate it? Are you ready to create and then pitch your creative communication? So why do you hate creating videos? Because that's a thing that I get a lot of people say is they hate creating videos. But like the video I did yesterday, it was 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to help y'all because I know a lot of you all also use ma'am, I saw this thing since Keisha is being honest, because that's the thing too. Everybody is critical of the way they look on video, right? And everybody wants to be perfect. I could say the same thing today. Like, I wanted to go get my hair done freshly for this. Didn't have time. But am I going to stop my own feelings? Am I going to stop the message that needs to get out because of the way I feel? Our feelings aren't fact. They're just feelings. So not being super saint, that's a prayer point, Miss LaKesha. That's a prayer point. You need to ask God to help you with that. And then also let's talk about perfection, because that's another thing. Perfection is a really big thing. And I also reasonably struggle with it because I know because I have the student debt to account for it. I know how videos should look. Even the video that I put out to talk about this video, and that's another thing to encourage the church and creatives and communicators. Reasonably, yes, you do need to show up as your best self, right? So that means like knowing the parameters of how you should look on screen. So you should always have space at the top of your head, not too much. You should be reasonably centered. In the video that I put out the other day, I was off centered because I was trying not to get the sun in my eyes, because let's be honest, giving y'all a tip. Natural light is the best light to film, period. If you can get natural light, use natural light. If you can't, and let's say you got to record something at night, use light yourself. However, and also try not to use a ring light. And I'm going to tell you why. Ring lights show up in your eyes and it shows up on your glasses. Go on Amazon, get you some inexpensive lights, the lights that pop open, put them up, and they're not that expensive. So I would say this, and I'm going to answer your question too in a second. I want it to be perfect, right? But let's say I didn't post that video. All the people who were like, oh my goodness, I didn't look at Prophetically producing, would have missed it. Why? Because I was off centered. It just makes me that much more aware. Like, okay, Shivawn, you know better, do better. But you have nothing to build upon if you don't show up. My first documentary, it was trash. And even a couple of our episodes of another show we did, it was painful to me, but people loved it. The one that I literally was like, oh man, like our lighting was off. We had the most views. So people will consume it if your messaging is amazing. It doesn't mean that you don't build upon it, don't make that same mistake, but you don't have anything to build upon if you don't put it out there. So getting things out, I much rather write the scripts and have others do it. I also sometimes even sit on ideas forever because I trained in theater, not film, and it feels uncomfortable to make the switch. My computer holds every story right now. And I get it, because at least you were trained in theater. I was not. I am not trained in front of the camera. I mean, like, you know, talk in front of church and all that stuff as a teen, but it's outside of my comfort zone. But this is something that God said to me the other day. He was like, whenever you're outside of your comfort zone and not leaning into perfection, right? You then have the ability to do what I've called you to do. Lean on me. There's no reason to rely on the Holy Spirit if you're perfect. You don't need him. You don't need God. And then we're already outside of his will because we know we need him to literally do everything. And it's like this. And I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm encouraging you. It's people who need those stories that are being held in your computer. That's literally always my motivation. And I'm not, and I told you earlier, I wasn't obedient. So it don't mean that it's an immediate turnaround. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I implore you to start. Like, it's somebody who needs it. It's somebody who needs to be seen, like felt seen. Like, how do you feel when you see something and you're like on a video and you're like, that was for me. I needed that, right? And the more you show up, the more the people who you are creating for are going to encourage you. Hands down. I have never got as many comments and DMs about the things I've been just doing. Like, okay, God, cool. Okay. Then now, literally, people are like, I feel seen. Like, they were like, I feel too seen. Stop it. But it fuels you. So I'm going to challenge every person that's on here that has been delaying obeying to show up. Is it going to be perfect? No. But are you going to be doing the work that God has called you to do? Yeah. And then we don't know the response to that. We don't know where God will position us, because if you look at people who are successful in creatively communicating, we love to see the stories of people evolving. Like, why don't we like seeing it in ourselves though? We love those stories. No, I mean, like, people don't resonate with overnight success. It's like, okay, cool. But you love to see somebody, like one of my favorite people in marketing, she just tells her story. Like, she has an amazing brand, and I've watched her go from, and she documented it. That's why I told you I use your camera. Where when she first started, she didn't have a car. She was pushing her basket to the bus stop to sell her service. And she's documented. And today, to see her run $1 million business, we watched her over 10 years. So who are we to have the audacity not to show up? Who are we? Come on, y'all. Let's do it. All right. So the type of people that I work with currently, I want to actively work with churches more because, and I hope anybody that's a part of a church or that is in leadership, I encourage you to take this back and like challenge our thinking around creativity, because we're missing not just a generation, because we like to just say, oh, we're missing like the 20-year-olds. No, we're missing a lot of people because we just refuse to grow. Like we look at it as, oh, we have to like be trendy. No, all you're doing is communicating, and you're prophetically producing. You're saying what God says, and you're not limiting yourself and putting yourself in a box for Sunday, for Wednesday night Bible study. You are actively seeing what is missing, and you're being creative about it. And that goes back to us being like childlike. Like, be curious. It's your greatest gift. Also, nonprofits. We do documentaries for nonprofits, brands, small businesses, and creatives. And I actively as well, do creative audits where we look at your business, brand, church, nonprofit, individual, and we look at what you're doing, and we come up with like a plan, and we let you know where you could do better, where you could grow, and what you're doing excellent in, because sometimes you're doing excellent in it, you're just on the wrong platform. And then I went over that. We also do full production. I also have a toolkit for creatives that are Christians, which literally has everything that I wish I knew before I went to film school. I have every type of how to grow, contracts, best practices, how to show up in your podcast, because I love podcasts too. So we have all of that. And then the content creation audit, as well as coaching and full production. So building content is my hardest part to try and balance with my schedule. Okay, so suggestion. And I don't know if you heard me earlier, you determine how much you want to put out, period. You determine that. So if it's once a week, that's your consistency. That is your consistency. Your consistency is once a week. You don't have pressure beyond that. We let the world pressure us. No, put your once a week out, and I'll be extra. I'll be like, okay, God, breathe on this once a week content and let it live long. That's the right I have to access your child. So I think that's the thing, like, set a time. And if you say that you're going to put out content once a week, that's 4 things that you need to do for the month. Take the pressure off of how frequent, but just stay consistent on what you establish. I hope that helps. And let's see what else I needed to tell you all. These are some of my clients I have worked with. The last person that we have listed is Christine Platt. That is actually the young lady she's the best-selling author. We did her documentary, short doc, for Essence Festival. It was really good. It was work because we got stuck in the rain, but we had fun. So ways that you can connect with me, you can actually go to my website, which I just newly updated for y'all because I love y'all so much. It is ShivawnMitchell.com. You can go there, and everything that I discussed is on there, as well as my email. You can send me an email and say that you listened to me on Rethinking Church, and that is collaborate@ShivawnMitchell.com. If you have questions, I have 5 minutes. Come on, 5 minutes. Oh, I got lipstick on my teeth. See, best friend, you would have been sad and would have logged off. I don't care. Lipstick on my teeth. Okay. So, any questions? But I'm glad I was low, so like on a little screen, so y'all couldn't see my lipstick on my teeth that whole time. That's not fly. And then so you gotta make like light of things. Like, oh, okay, it's not the end of the world. You'll be all right. Any questions? Any other feedback, concerns? Thank you. I enjoyed y'all. I had a great time. I hope it encourages y'all seriously to go out and produce more than you consume. Listen, I saw it. I was like, girl, this ain't it. Wipe that lipstick off. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I believe there's a whole celebration party at 3 o'clock. So I want to give y'all time to get over there. I can't wait until I have to talk to you like a professional. Reverend LaKesha, um, I really believe that you should do this in person because I think it is an amazing thing that you are doing. If you haven't already, please go and get the book that they have put out. It is still number one, I believe. When I looked last night, it was. So I really hope that you all go purchase the book. Please support everything that Rethinking Church is doing. Share it with your community, share it with your churches, share it with your organization, your businesses, because people need it. And they also need to be encouraged because we all need it, especially during this time, because I'm ready to get out of the pandemic. Okay. So this has been fun. As always, I will see y'all in the streets of social media. I am not above you DMing me. I will respond. So I will talk to you all soon. See you in the, I want to say party. Is that appropriate? See you in the party. See y'all later.